Welcome to Grayface Gaming. This is Josh. Today we're going to do something a little bit different, but something that I hope to do more of. Today we're going to go over this Azlask, the Swelling Scourge deck with Multiscuf. Azlask is a 3 generic 2/2 legendary Eldrazi 5 color commander. Whenever Azlask the Swelling Scourge or another colorless creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. For Wooburg, creatures you control get +1/+1 +X until end of turn, where X is the number of experience counters you have. Scions and spawns you control gain Indestructible and Annihilator 1 until end of turn. Alright, I'm gonna let Multiscuf take it over from here. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, this is Azlask, King of the World. My name's Multiscuf. I go by that everywhere. I've been on this deck since June of 2024 when this commander got spoiled. My primary reason for playing it is because it's a colorless commander. You can cast it with any pips. It's low stress, and it's a 5-color commander that lets you do whatever you want.
I love it.
Yeah, so I guess we'll just get into the nitty-gritty real quick. Your primary win con is Vivien on the Hunt and Birthing Pod, which we can see when we get down to the artifacts. We're on both of the Birthing Pod lines that are just very simple and quick. Obviously, Birthing Pod is quicker than Vivien, but you kind of need both ways to kind of pivot your way into either the long game or the short game. And you can generally get Vivien down on turn 3, just the same as you can get Birthing Pod down on turn 2 through your rituals and your just long game plans with, cards like Calling Ritual. And yeah, so that's the main premise of the list. I kind of came up with that idea, I don't know, probably a year and a half ago. I really wasn't on the Birthing Pod line when I first started the deck, but in a couple conversations with friends, playtest, we realized that if you jam Birthing Pod and you go fast, it's a lot harder for people to interact with the line. And so that's why we've taken the deck from a mid-range deck to a more of a turbo-focused deck. With a mid-range game plan for your turn 4 and later games. I think it works. Other people say it's a very weird deck. It doesn't work. There's no, real vision. Your win con's clunky, and Birthing Pod can be stopped. But in my testing, I've jammed so many Birthing Pod win lines now at this point that even if you do stop the win line, I'm going, I'm grabbing Grand Arbiter, I'm grabbing Talion, I'm grabbing Phyrexian Metamorph, we're grabbing Argok Scavenger. We're really just pivoting the list into a mid-range game plan. If people do interact with your Birthing Pod, and obviously if you've got Vivien down, there's no one stopping you at this point. So yeah, that's how the list kind of came to be. I think, Josh and I have played a couple games here and there, and I think he's kind of seen the deck kind of just falter, and that's kind of where we're at now with the deck, where it's not going as fast as it should, and it's not performing optimally. I think it's March right now, so of 2026. So in February of 2026, I went like 10, 0, 28, 24 in the Crit League. And that's a lot of games, but we got 10 wins in, so that's an upside to the deck.
So is any of the text on the commander relevant, or is it kind of just there for colors and like maybe potting into something?
It's interesting you say that, because way back in at the beginning of October, I would have said that the text on the commander is irrelevant. Nothing makes sense. It's just there for the colors, right? I have one game through Commander activations, um, where I did have to give all my creatures plus X, and plus X plus X was a million, because my commander had died once, and we did use the Ariok Scavenger LED loot to make infinite of all colors, and then put infinite activations of Azlask on the stack and swing at the table. So it has become relevant to winning a game, whether it's the main, source of the deck and what you should be looking for in your win con. Definitely not. Um, I think the next iteration of this list, going forward, will be off of cards of like Glaring Fleshraker and Beseech the Mirror, and I think we'll be taking out ad nauds as well, as just they don't really benefit the list. There's no way for me to just go fast and win. And our commander is just so. I think it'd be faster if I put in like Calling Week and cards like more ramp, like Rite of Flame, that kind of stuff. So the deck is going more turbo now instead of mid range, and so that's why we're kind of removing those cards. And triple black is also really hard for the deck to produce. Yeah, but other than that, Commander's just there for text, or for colors, and it costs 3. And
Yep.
generally, you can cast it on turn 1 5 times out of 8, right? You're getting
Yep.
it down, you're slamming it. It opens up all your free interaction, and I think that's what people, misunderstand about the commander, is that they just think, oh, it's a commander that does nothing, and I'm okay with that first response from people when they play the deck. But when you're on cards like Jessica's Will, Fierce, Deadly Rawlike, and Deflecting Swat, which are really game-changing free spells when your commander's out, I think it's important to get that commander down as quickly as possible. And while you can play cards like Najila, Essica, oh God, what's that? Terra, right? Your main 3 cEDH commanders out there. They're really held back sometimes by just what colors you can keep in your opening hand. Meanwhile, I don't even have to think about that. I'm not having to sit there and be like, well, I need a green and a red for my commander, or I need a red, or I need green to cast my commander to activate my free interaction. So I'm just there from the start, freely being able to play whatever land base I want, whatever game plan I want, whether I'm going that ad nause, calling ritual, game plan, or I'm potting, or I'm not held back, as I like to say, and I think that's why I'm on the commander, and why I will be on the commander for the until they print some a 0 cost commander, that's 5 color.
Yeah.
If we're being honest,
So this question might seem random, but
Mhm.
speaking of the mana base, is there anything spicy in the mana base, or is it just kind of like a basic 5 color try to make my
Yeah,
picks mana base?
yeah. So there's nothing too spicy. I mean, your land base, we're on 27 land to start with. We're on your basic, we're not on plateau, and we're not on we're on all 10 fetches, all 9 dual lands, cutting out plateau. Actually, something that's funny that I haven't done to my land base yet is I haven't put in City of Traders. After a couple conversations last night and a couple, talking to my card supplier, I did end up finding a City of Traders, so that is going to be going into the list. That's probably the only change you'll see from the time this video is posted to, um, you know, current, is I
Okay.
am putting in the City of Traders for the mana, just
Yeah.
because, 2 colorless mana is insane and very important.
and very
Um,
close to 3, which is what you
yeah,
need to cast your commander.
yeah,
It opens up your turn 1 commander play by a lot, it seems like.
yeah. Your turn one, turn two commander is like the bread and butter of the deck. If you can slam a pod down on turn one, like nobody's stopping you. They may bounce your uh, birthing pod, and you just got to keep moving, or they may bounce or redirect your Felder Guardian, and you just kind of have to keep jamming through all of this. I always, I don't talk to a lot of people online about the deck, but when you are jamming, just jamming and slamming the deck against the table, you have to understand that they're going to stop birthing pod. They're going to slow you down. They're going to interact with every piece. So sometimes, I always bait the table and say, "Hey guys, do we got interaction? Like, if you can stop me, and I'm gonna go get a different piece." And that's where it opens up to game pieces like Talion the Kindly Lord, Grand Arbiter,
Mm-hmm.
Ariok Salvengers, and you really get to pivot into a different game plan. Now you never go get Ariok Scavenger unless you have um, LED in your hand. It's just a dead card. A lot of the time, I'm Chromoxing Ariok Salvenger, under the Chromox and just playing the game, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can't just hold on to it and expect to win with it. But you get cards like Talion down, and generally the breach line stops. They're not able to brain freeze themselves because they're taking 2 every time, and they're already a low. They're already killing themselves to get to the brain freeze on the world line. So a lot of decks don't do that. It stops the Thassas, or it stops the Thassa's decks most of the time, and it stops the Thrasios Rog decks from doing eternal witness loops because
Mm-hmm.
they'll just kill themselves if they do that. So you really have to understand the other decks at the table uh, if you're going to go get Talion Lord, or if you just want to turn your brain off because you don't know what people are playing. You grab Grand Arbiter, you slam it on the table, and you stacks the table.
Yep.
It's generally my favorite 1-2 play. So turn one you play your commander, turn two you play birthing pod, activate birthing pod, sack your commander, go get Grand Arbiter, because you're at least guaranteeing that you get your pod activation, which is really important because now you've killed your commander. So you've got one experience counter there. You're now on a stacks piece, which is generally really hard for people to remove. Obviously, if you're at an all red table, they're going to pyroblast it, red elemental blast it. They're going to do everything like that to get rid of the piece, which is fine, right? You're wasting interaction in people's hands, and I feel like that's the best thing you can do. And they have to pay 2 to remove it, so
Yes. Yep.
have
That's what I
fun.
was thinking.
Uh, um, so it's a great piece of just like, and you can win through it too, right? So you can win with, casting cards like Intuition and Gifts Ungiven. They now cost 2 and 3 instead of 3 and 4. You got a Born Upon the Wind for 1. So now you're able to, and this is why the Adnaz conversation comes back into play of like, do we stay on Adnaz? Because now we can Adnaz, and all I have to do is have 3 mana, and I can Born and Intuition for basically nothing off an LED. Um, so there's conversations like that that are going around in my head for the list. Um, whether we stay on that is, uh, unknown right now. But
Mm-hmm.
Jessica's Will and Calling Ritual are your big mana spells. You can cast your commander on turn 1, Jessica's Will, and basically target someone with 7 cards in their hand. Hopefully they have 7 cards, and you're gonna play Birthing Pod, and you can use the rest of the mana to do the Birthing Pod line. Same with Calling Ritual. Calling Ritual will get rid of cards like Containment Priest and cards like Grafdigger's Cage, which really hurt the deck and don't allow you to progress your board state. And so you get to just cast a calling ritual, and even if you're hitting all your mana rocks, I mean, obviously you just tap your mana rocks and float a bunch of mana and slam it on the table, and slam a birthing pod or slam a Wishclaw Talisman. We're on Wishclaw for that exact reason of it can be cast through a calling ritual. It's a great, just overall good card. And you can cast ad nauseas and stuff like that. So that's kind of why we're heavy on black cards. It's because calling ritual just allows us to have that much more freedom.
Okay.
If you
So
go,
speaking of intuition and gifts, what type of piles are you looking to put together with those cards when you're trying to win?
so I think it's a really tough question because when you're looking at a table of meta decks, right? Let's just go down. You're going down. You're facing off a Kennen, Blue Farm, Timna Dargo, right? Generally, they're gonna let you do it. They're going to let you get away with an intuition or a gift ungiven, and so you don't really want to grab your normal, LED, uh, Underworld Breach combo because they just have the cards in interaction to stop you. So my favorite pile that I get when I cast a Gifts Ungiven or Gifts Ungiven and an Intuition is I just grab cards like Ariok Salinger, Grand Abolisher or Grand Arbiter, Talion, and Formidable Speaker, or I'll grab Glaring Fleshraker, Talion, Metamorph, and a Valley. Um, you're grabbing value creatures because there's no way they're going to let anything happen. And putting these creatures in your yard doesn't hurt you when you run Kermit Guide. Um, I think that's what people underestimate is that this deck can just bring it back. There's nothing holding you back from pitching these kinds of creatures. There's been times where I have Kermit Guide in my hand. Guess what? I can no longer do the birthing pod line. So now we have to find a different line and bring stuff back from the graveyard. And you can throw a Voice of Victory or a Grand Abolisher or a Hexing Sculpture in the yard and just bring it back with Kermit Guide. Sometimes you can go get Kermit Guide in your gifts in your intuition pile, and people will just give you Kermit Guide, and because they don't know what Kermit Guide does. It's a very Brewers advantage deck, is what I like to say. You have to navigate all your piles that you create differently than most. But yeah, your general standard, grab Brain Freeze, grab LED and Underworld are there. But typically grabbing those cards, if they do let the Gifts Ungiven resolve, is um, anything else. We're also on Savines, right? So you can go and grab, Savines and like a Valley and a Cabbage, right? Like you can go grab all of this stuff and you're still going to get it back, right? That's what I think is the biggest importance to the deck is grab something you can bring back with Savines or Kermit Guide if
Okay.
Kermit's in your hand.
So you have the ability to win through those cards, but mostly they're there for value.
Yeah, I would say they're just another way to search your deck, get stuff out of your deck. Sometimes I had to do it in a game this morning where I had to intuition for land, and I got the land, right? Because someone's seeing that I'm short on land, and then I was able to take that land and pivot it into a draw. Sadly, couldn't pivot it into a win, but welcome to the draw meta that that's evaporating the cEDH format right now, in my opinion. But that's another
A draw's
conversation.
better than a loss, at least. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
exactly.
get you. Especially if you're hurting on lands, taking a draw,
Mhm.
especially depending on seat position. Like if you were seat 4 and behind on lands, then a lot of time draw is like the best you can hope for.
Exactly, and it's funny enough you say that because that's exactly where I was seated in seat
Yeah.
4. So, but yeah, this deck just kind of came together with a bunch of friends, in time, and the degeneracy of how my head works. There's no real reason that you couldn't be playing a better commander with a better play pattern and a better, pivot shift, like Terra or other, 5-color commanders like Kenrith and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Kenrith would be better because, Kenrith can bring back all your creatures from the yard. But I I don't believe in playing meta decks. I believe in playing fringe, fun, decks that you slap down on the table and people go, "What are you playing?" And I just go, "I'm just having fun. I'm just playing a
Yeah.
Magic deck that makes me smile."
Yep.
And I think that's the most important part of creating a deck is playing a deck that's competitive at a table, but also fast enough and wonky enough that the whole table goes, "Wait, did you just win that way?" I played a game a couple days ago where they stopped me from birthing pod. Like I remember going and getting Felder Guardian. I went and grabbed Kermit Guide, and then I got the Felder Guardian, and as soon as I put the Felder Guardian back on the stack, it got deflecting swatted. And let's just say you don't have another 4-drop at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
But funny enough, this was also the game where I turn 1, turn 2 pod, and I potted away, and I got a Grand Abolish or a Grand Arbiter.
Mm-hmm.
So all I did was let the turn go around. Everyone's going like, "Well, he's out of the game. He can't play." Um, and then I just pot away my Grand Arbiter on my turn and go get Kiki, and I won the game because they forget that Grand Arbiter is a 4-drop, and they think I'm just going to leave it around as a
Mm-hmm.
stax piece for the rest of the game. Um, so you can really pivot um, your 4-drop into your 5-drop Kiki if the birthing pod line does somehow dissolve into chaos. Um, but most of the time, you're going to be stopped. You're going to be looking for a different line. Um, and that's what makes the deck fun is because it's turn 3, turn 2 pod slam on the table, freaks everyone out to the point where they burn interaction, and they're not going to be able to stop you now, or they're going to try and stop you again down the road. But they're also now have to worry about everyone else because now everyone else has engines online, Ristic Studies, Mystic Remora. It's like they're all these decks are going for value creatures, value clones, value everything that they're not going to look at you anymore once the pod's either back in your hand, the Felder Guardian's been swatted away. Nobody's looking at you anymore. You are the least of the table's problems, and that's where you can generally sneak in your most wins. Is just waiting for that.
And you're like super resilient too, it seems
Yeah.
like, because stopping you, unless it's like mind break trap or something, almost doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get your pod online, you don't need to cast any more spells, do you?
Correct. Yeah. So that's the biggest thing is you're a 2-spell deck. 90% of the time, you're casting pod. You're casting your commander. You're casting 2 spells, so you can't be interacted by main break trap. I had someone this morning, or maybe it's a couple days ago, weeks ago, doesn't matter. Try to pyroblast my commander, but my commander is colorless, so you can't do that, even though it is all 5 colors.
Mm-hmm.
So um, it's really great that you can be on a colorless commander that can't be targeted by multitudes of spells. Um, Except for like a Path to Exile and the swords. And if someone's going to waste their interaction on that, that's fine. You just got a huge win
Right.
because that means that they're not going to be able to hit your Kermit Guide or your Kiki or your Felder later on. And you don't care if your commander dies. I've paid 7, I've paid 9 for my commander in games because you're just trying to jam as fast as humanly possible with a pivot of going into your line of Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze. So those are your backup win cons. We haven't really talked much about them, but Underworld Breach is the glue of the deck. I don't think if this card existed in Magic that this deck would be any remotely possible to be played. Underworld Breach just allows you to do some really janky stuff. I've Underworld Breached and everyone's like, oh, you can brain freeze, like you'll be fine. I'm like, no. We can Jessica's Will over and over again. Creating almost infinite mana. I played in a local this past weekend where I just Jessica willed the table, and because I had a Voice of Victory out, the opponent who had a Ristic Study just kept drawing and drawing and drawing until he had 23 cards in his hand, and I just casted Jessica's Will, got 23 mana, exiled 3 cards, and I just kept doing that over and over again because I had a fat graveyard because I've already calling ritualed this game and tried to go for the pod line. It failed. So now I'm just casting Jessica's Will off the top until I hit cards that are relevant, So like now we're getting all of our colors because we're hitting cards like Thalwar Stone and Arcane Signet. So now we can just go into the brain freeze loop. We can psych rift the table if there's problematic stuff, or just psych rift the table because you don't want anything to exist. And it really allows you to go down this rabbit hole of winning through brain freeze and winning through Jessica's Will. Also, Jessica's Will is a great way that if for some reason your brain freeze got exiled in the past, or you just can't find brain freeze, you're going to hit birthing pod at some point. You're going to hit your win con if you just Jessica's willing over and over and over again. And because your win line is primarily colorless, not the spells aren't colorless, but the win line is colorless. Yeah. It opens up patterns that people just can't read. Not that the community is stupid or anything like that, but when they just see you slamming colorless stuff on the table all the time, they're like, "Oh, he can't win. His mana base isn't presenting any definitive plan. It's 3 red, it's 4 blue. It's just it doesn't make sense what he's doing over there." And I think that's where the deck can just really shine, is at a table where no one knows what they're doing. But also, when I play with my regular group of friends, and I've played with them for a decade at this point, even they're like, they're keeping interaction for this deck on turn 1 because they're scared of it. They know what it can do. And I think when you are playing into a meta or a group of people that know your deck, that know your list, and you're keeping interaction for you, it's a sense of joy that you don't get to have when you play Blue Farm or when you play decks like Kennen and stuff, because everyone's keeping interaction for those decks. Everyone's looking for a way to stop those decks on turn 1, turn 2. When they look at Azlask, people are like, "Oh, I'm not worried about that commander. That commander is going to do nothing." And then it's presenting turn 2, turn 3 wins.
Yeah, I love that,
and that's important to me. I think when you build a commander that's as wacky and as wild and as degenerate as Azlask is, being able to cast, all these free spells. I'm not even hovering over the free spells. Deadly Rollick, Deflecting Swat, and Fierce. In a meta where free interaction, is the most important pieces of interaction out there, you got to be able to stop people. I've been on stack wars of 80 plus effects, right? Maybe not 83 cards were put on the stack, but we got Ristic Study triggers, Mystic Remora triggers, Smothering Tide triggers, Cabbage Man triggers, and like you just get to this point where like the stack is so big, and you're the one that caused it. And you may lose that game, you may win that game, but it's a rewarding fact that like you're building a deck, you've built this deck that can keep up with the table. And that's where I'm on this crazy package of 28 instances. I don't think we've talked about this. but I'm on 28 instances, and it seems like a lot. I'm on Pact, Offer, Flusterstorm, Mental Misstep, Redirect Lightning, Pyroblast, uh,
Swan
Deflecting
songs.
Swat, Fierce. No, I'm actually not. Am I on Swan Song? I think I.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I'm not on Swan Song. Oh, there
Yes.
it is. Yeah, I'm blind as a bat.
It's the laptop.
Yeah.
It's because you're on a laptop.
Yeah. So Swan Song, Mind Break Trap, Fierce. I mean, we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pieces of interaction, 12 pieces of interaction in a 5-color deck.
Yeah.
I know most people are in 5-color on like 8 or 9 pieces of counter interaction. From when I look at a list and stuff. So I think I'm on like the upper end of interaction, and I just feel like I need to be on that much because I have to police the table too. A lot of people aren't running interaction anymore. A lot of people are playing parasitic, decks where they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to interact until the last possible moment." And
Mm.
sometimes I feel like I gotta be the one that steps in there and be like, "Guys, let's not let him get like insane value." A lot
Yeah.
of people are like, "Oh, let's let the Ristic Study slide. It'll be okay." And I'm like, "Can we not let it slide? It's a Kennen deck. Like, are we really going to let it slide?" Um, so I feel like I have to be that voice of reason for people at the table.
It's
And
funny
and
to
so
hear the turbo deck say that though too, but at the same time, it's like you need to see turn 3 so that you can win on turn 3.
Right, exactly. Like if we can't see turn 3, then nobody sees turn 3, and then nobody can stabilize. And even when we're, because I'm not a deck that requires to cast a dozen spells, right? I don't need to feed Ristic Studies. I'm not looking to feed a Mystic Remora, right? I'm just looking to play my Birthing Pod and jam a win, right? I'm not having to sit there and worry about giving 19 cards to the blue farm on my turn because all I'm doing is playing a Vivian or a Birthing Pod. And that's where the deck I feel shines the most is you're not feeding people ridiculous amounts of cards like some other decks are. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, our enchantment package is Mystic Remora, Underworld Breach, Ristic Study, Smothering Tide.
Clean, as
Obvious,
clean as it gets.
yeah, we can't be on any more than that. I've thought about, or I would say, I don't know, if you looked at a version from like 2 or 3 weeks ago of the list, we were on Survival of the Fittest. I'll tell you that card is bad. If you're thinking of taking this deck and ripping it apart and going to different lines and stuff, by all means, let me know. Let's talk about the deck. I'm always interested to see if people want to revamp this list into something else. But if your thought process is, hey, like I want to go put in Survival of the Fittest, like it's gonna be a good card. I've tested it. It doesn't do what you think it does. Even though we're on cards like Valley Flood Color, which you could just search up and go get. So it's difficult. It's difficult to say if in 4 years from now we'll be on a more creature heavy list and a less instance and sorcery list, and we'll need the Survival of the Fittest. But right now, if I have Kiki Jiki or I have Kermit Guide in my hand, I am taking it as okay, great. Now that these two cards are in my hand, I can slam an Adnaz down on the table and pick up
Mm.
basically my entire deck. Um, and so that's where Adnaz is kind of having its shining moment in the list is when these two cards or one of these two cards is in my hand, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm not winning with Pod. Let's jam Adnaz, and now I can not take 27 points of damage on 2 flips. Which if you've ever Adnaz and you flip over two 5-drops in a row, you take 10 damage. You're pretty much dead at this point.
Yeah.
So the deck's goal is to hey, let's get all of these 4 cost and 5 cost out of your deck as quickly as humanly possible. And then if we have to, if we haven't won by then, Our backup plan is Ad Naz and Underworld Breach.
I love
Um,
that two of the best win conditions in the whole format are backup plans for this deck. And I think
yeah.
that that really kind of shows the strength of the deck, that everybody else's plan A is your plan B and C.
Mm-hmm. Now, there may be a comment or two out there, and I know they're going to happen because I get them in almost every time I share this list in a game online. Is obviously you can see it's missing. We haven't talked about it, but Thassa's Oracle's not in the deck. There's no Tainted Pact. There's no Demonic Consultation. Now, people are going to ask why. We're 5-color guys. We do not need to be running Thassa's Oracle as a win condition in 5-color decks anymore. We are in 2026. We have far better win cons in 5-color that we can be doing that isn't so telegraphed and boring. Yeah, okay, cool. I could hypothetically birthing pod one of my 1-drops away and put in and slam Thassa on the table. But then I have to have Tainted Pact in my hand, or I have to have Demonic Tutor in my hand.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be exiling my entire deck away. I want my
True.
deck and my library in my playable field, So that's why we're not on that card.
The
I
blowout
personally
potential is really high there
yeah,
too.
yeah. Yeah, I've seen people demonic consultation for a Ristic study or a Mystic Remora, and like 82% of the library is gone. Just from doing a play like that, and you're like, why would? Or I was in games over this weekend where someone demonic consultation and they exiled 3 times in a row. It was in their top 6 cards, and it's like, why would I want to put myself in that position where I'm hurting myself over just putting win cons on the stack? So yeah, that's why we're not on Thassa's Oracle. I think it's just dead in 5-color. I think more 5-color decks should cut it from their list. I don't think you can necessarily cut it from like decks like Blue Farm or TNT or those kind of 4-color decks just yet, because those decks don't have enough supportive win cons. But in this deck, we're just it was also way too many win cons at that point, right? Like we were getting pulled in multiple directions between the birthing pod, the Underworld Breach line, and then also having Thassa's on top of that. Like we were we were struggling to get wins just with that many win cons, because I would draw Thassa's and then I'd be like, oh well, I need the Vamp Tutor for Tainted Pact or Demonic, and I was like, all right. And then the next card I draw is Birthing Pod, and I'd be like, well, I'm just going to slam Pod on the table now because Pod's the best win line. It's the hardest. It is the hardest, easiest win con to interact with, because either they have to stop your Pod from hitting the table, which is easy to do. It gets countered, and then great, you can move on. They've wasted interaction. You've maybe wasted some interaction, but you're able to burn people's hands. Or they let you slam the birthing pot on the table, and then you just say, hey guys, I'm not gonna go grab Pelder Guardian. I'm gonna grab something different. And when you're able to say, oh, you're gonna grab something different? Okay, what are you gonna go grab? I don't know. I have 4 other 4-drops in the deck. I don't know which one I'm going to grab in this scenario. Let me think. Like, is it okay that I go search? And they're like, yeah, go search. You're still stating that you're never grabbing Felder Guardian, and this whole time you're talking to the table. And that's when you slam Talion on the table. And they're like, Talion? Why are you running that? And it's like, well, I need a draw, because now we're in a state where birthing pod isn't going to work because everyone has interaction to stop your birthing pod line. And now you need to catch back up with the table because you have no cards in your hand. So because you've just turboed out everything, now you need to refill your hand. Well, Talion on 2 refills your hand almost instantaneously, because everyone is running a 2-drop, or every creature that they play is a 2/1 or a 1/2 or a 2-drop or a so that's where the pivot angle is great in this deck, where you can just go right into that control kind of mid-range game plan. And then later, let's say you do. There's times where I've just casted a Feldar Guardian for fun. You're like, I'm just going to cast Feldar Guardian, doesn't matter. And they're like, oh, you're going to go for the line. I'm like, I mean, yeah, I could go for the line. All right, you let them go for the line, or you go for the line, they blow you out, they've wasted a bunch of interaction. You don't waste a single piece of interaction in this instance, by the way. You let it all happen. You let the chaos unfold. And then next turn, when you still, if they target your birthing pod, obviously respond, do something to stop them. But, at this point, this is where you would be, okay, hey, I'm ready now to pot away my Talion, go get my Kiki Jiki, and slam it on the table. And you're going to win 9 times out of 10 with that thought process, because nobody thinks you're going to pot away Talion, Grand Arbiter, or even Ariok Salinger. Now, granted, if we've gotten to the point of where we're on Ariok Salinger, we've created infinite mana and we haven't won, we have an issue, right? We genuinely we've genuinely gone down the rabbit hole. Generally, this Ariok Salvager plan is a very, very, very late game strategy where your commander has died once or twice, and you're just making your commander and every little creature on the board infinitely bigger, and you're just running down the table. Again, it's only come up once in my entire, play testing and playing of the deck, where you've had to do that. But it's great to know that you can create infinite mana in the deck and just slam it down. You also got Glaring Fleshraker, which kind of also goes infinite with Ariok Scavenger. And this Glaring Fleshraker, it wasn't in the deck to begin with, and then it was in the deck, and then it left the deck, and then it's come back and forth. When we first did the iteration of this deck, we were on the Brute Scale Rosy Cotton line, where you make infinite Scion tokens, or Spawn tokens. I forget which one Brute Scale makes, but anyway, where you made infinite amount of 0/1 tokens, and it was a great way to finish the table. The problem with that is, well, now you're on the 3-card combo, right? And we all know how 3-card combos are in Magic. They generally don't work out, because you have either have one piece or you have 2 pieces, but you're still looking for the other piece, and you don't really want to waste a piece of or tutor or a search to go find it. And so this is where we kind of just ended up being like, all right, like we're taking those 2 cards out. We're going to add in Formidable Speaker and Cabbage Merchant, right? Like that's what we took out for those cards. We're going to be more of a mid-range game plan, and not on a line that requires too many pieces.
It gives you a strong pivot.
Yeah, strong pivot is it. And the Glaring Fleshraker, in a month or 2 or 3 or 4 months from now, it could be gone from the list, because it's honestly, it only really goes infinite now with Ariok Salvager and Lotus Petal and LED, which is great, right? It's great that we have like a super late, super weird kind of game plan. But Glaring Fleshraker also requires you to have colorless mana, like the colorless pip, to cast it, and that's kind of what's holding the card back the most right now. So we'll see if it survives the trial and fire of the deck. But right now we really haven't had to rely on it as a win con, and I doubt we will be using it as a win con in the further past. So, but yeah, the deck is completely out of my head. I didn't really net deck anything. I think the only thing I net decked was other birthing pod lines that were possible within 5 color. And then still coming back to the conclusion that Feldar Guardian, Karmic Guide, Kiki is the best combo you can go for.
Speaking of, would you mind going through that line for anybody who might not know?
Yeah.
Basically your pod line.
Yeah, so the pod line is you cast Birthing Pod, which is way down here. Cast Birthing Pod for 3 colorless and a Phyrexian. Phyrexian is just you pay 2 life. So to activate it, you will pay a colorless. You'll pay your life again in cEDH, guys. Your life is a resource, so make sure you use it. I've gone all the way down to 4 life before and won a game because I'm not afraid to just use my life total. But yeah, your commander is a 3-drop, and the way that Birthing Pod reads is you're just swapping the 3-drop for a 4-drop, basically. So you'll sack Azlask. You will go and find Feldar Guardian. Feldar Guardian reads whenever it enters, you may exile another target permanent I control, and then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So you will be targeting Birthing Pod, which then resets it. You then sack Feldar Guardian and grab Kermit Guide. Kermit Guide will bring back the Feldar Guardian. The Feldar Guardian will target the Birthing Pod. You will then grab Kiki G, or you'll grab Kiki Jiki when you sack the Feldar Guardian again. Kiki Jiki will make a copy of Kermit Guide. Kermit Guide will go get your Feldar Guardian back. Your Feldar Guardian will then untap your Kiki Jiki. Your Kiki Jiki plus your Kermit Guide, or plus your Feldar Guardian, make infinite 1/4 cats that murder the entire table with haste. This is only a combo you can do pre-main phase or pre-combat main phase. You never want to do it after the fact because then you can't swing and you can't kill the table. So you just have to be very careful of not going to combat before you go for your win condition. A lot of decks, they'll go to combat and then they'll present their win in the after phase. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's just a 3-card quick combo with your commander. It's technically 4, but you need at least the 4 cards in your deck to do anything beneficial. So you could there's another birthing pod line out there where you can start at 2 with the Seaver Exarch and the Hall Monitor card, where you can sacrifice a 1-drop, go to a 2-drop, go to a 3-drop, go to a 4-drop, go to a 5-drop. Obviously, it's way too many cards in cEDH to be on because now you're relying on such a heavy pod line that you have no other ways to pivot out of it, and pod is the most easiest interaction points. You can blow up the pod with Beseiju. You can swap the target of Feldar Guardian. You can redirect lightning it. You can. There's just so many points where you can interact with Birthing Pod that if you build your whole deck to survive on Birthing Pod combos, you're probably going to lose that game, 10 times out of 10.
Your commander kind of lets you just cheat that whole first part of that too.
Exactly. Having the 3-drop in the command zone just supersedes everything. It allows you to just have the freedom to get what you want. And I think
so you need 3 for Azlask, you need 3 for Birthing Pod, and then you need to activate it twice.
No, you need to activate it 3 times. So you're
3 times, so 9 mana. You can
so
win all in one go.
Yeah, you're looking at 9 colorless mana. Again, a reminder, this is colorless mana. You don't need pips. You don't need any kind of crazy, double red or triple black or quadruple blue or anything like that. You just need colorless and 6 life because your Birthing Pod, or if you're casting Birthing Pod the same turn, it's technically 10 mana and 8 life. But you should never be casting all those spells on the same turn. You will.
Yeah, you can just start with the 3, and then the next turn you only need 6.
Yeah, exactly. So and you're just on so much mana, right? Like you're on Birds, you're on Ignoble, you're on both the hierarchs. You're on Tinderwall. Tinderwall is not a new edition, but new to this year edition in terms of just producing a bunch of land. We go down here. We're on Grim Monolith. We're on Volt. We're on Lion's Eye Diamond. There are some points in the game or games I've played where you just keep Lion's Eye Diamond, Manifold, Birthing Pod, and like 2 land, right? Because you're gonna cast your commander turn 1 with a Manifold. You're going to play Birthing Pod. Like, let's just say you had a land in an Ancient Tomb, right? You'll play the land, you'll tap 3, you'll play Birthing Pod on turn 2, and then you play the Lion's Eye Diamond, you sack the Lion's Eye Diamond, you don't care what's in your hand, and you just jam, right? And this is a turn 2 win right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you already have your commander out, your Birthing Pod is good, and like you don't really care what's in your hand. Now, this is also what I've talked about in throughout this conversation is, hey, if someone can stop you, you pivot to Talion, right? But you have to be good at the social game, or they'll blow you out, right? They'll
Yeah.
let you get the Felder Guardian, and then they'll stop you, or they'll blow up your pod or whatever. So you have to. I'm very blunt and very aggressive when I talk to people. And that's just how I am, like socially. As a person, it's very hard for me not to be. So people kind of take that aggression as like, oh yeah, no, I can definitely stop you, man. Like, don't go for that line. Don't go for that line. So it's a fun little trick that you can get if you agitate players. They will generally give you the
Oh,
most information. Um, and so I use that to my advantage. Some people like to use I have a friend who plays my deck sometimes at locals, and I'll play his weird brew that he has. And he brings a nice approach to it, and it works just as well, right? So this is the deck of it's a secret politic deck, right? You really have to understand every deck at the table. You have to understand how fast they can go above you, and what kind of hands you're keeping. Because you can keep a mid-range hand, and you can keep um, a gas hand, right? So, if you're in seat 1, seat 2, you can go for a mid-range game plan and you'll be fine. If you're in seat 3, seat 4, maybe you start risking it. Maybe you start getting to those 4 or 5, the hands of 4 and 5, and you're really just trying to jam before seat 1 and seat 2 can win. Um, your hands in this game, or with this deck, I mean, we can just go look at a playtest hand real quick because we've always got one generated. Oh my goodness, internet. No, that's not the internet. That's just hands. Yeah, so our ad nauseum is a 1.56. It's pretty high. A lot of people will say that you want to be around like that 1.1 or that 1.2 range is what I've heard.
mm-hmm.
Um,
But
but
you're not trying
I
to
don't
win
think,
with ad nause.
yeah, like I'm using ad nause as like a refill my hand type method. I'm using it as a okay, like my barking pod line failed, like time to re up my hand and try and jam another win the next turn, or I'm using my ad nause as like as a bargaining tool with people to a lot of people will let you cast ad nause if someone else is going for a win. it's just
Yeah.
it's just what happens. I don't know why or how, but yeah, your main goal is just ad nause is there if you need it. But yeah, real quick, hand here. Got a City of Brass, Grim Monolith, Felwar Stone, Swan Song, Ignoble. We're,
You
we're,
keep
we're,
that?
we're
It looks like a
realistic.
pitch.
Yeah, we're pitching this. We're pitching this. This is a very bad hand. Does nothing. I mean, cool. We can turn. We can turn 1 or turn 2 Azlask, but like, let's draw a card. Okay, cool. Like, again, the hand does nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so this is a hand. This is definitely a hand we would love to keep if we didn't get Kiki, right? If this was like a 6, we would keep it. We would keep it primarily because we know we can put Kiki on the bottom, and we know will never see Kiki again until we birthing pot line.
Mm-hmm.
So if this was a 6, but sadly this is like a second 7, so we would be having to pitch this as well. Again, Kermit guide in hand, we pitch it. Anytime you get one of the 3 pieces in your hand, you pitch it. You just pitch it. It's not going to hurt you. Pitching cards is a huge benefit. when they're at the bottom of your library, you don't have to look at them. Here we go. This is a dream hand right here. This is the best of the best hand you can possibly get. You're going to turn 1 Ragavan, turn 2 Tindawall, cast your commander or birthing pod, right? The reason you're doing birthing pod or your commander is because people make will make wild choices and either be tapped out on turn, like their turn 1, your turn 2, or they'll have interaction open, and you just kind of have to like look at people's mana base, look at the colors that are on the table, and be like, can I get away with slamming birthing pod here? Great, I'm going to slam it down on the table because birthing pod is the most interactable piece of your thing. You can cast your commander turn 3, but yeah, this is the turn 3 guaranteed win. Not guaranteed, obviously. Nothing
I get you.
is guaranteed. But
if uninteracted, it's a guaranteed win, and you have the Veil of Summer as well, which protects you from a lot.
Yeah, exactly. It protects you from all the bounces that happen in Magic, which is great because
a Path or a Swords doesn't matter really because you just are going to pot it away anyway.
Yep. Yeah. So they can swords your commander, they can swords everything, and it's fine. You just now you've gone from turn 3 slamming on the table to all right, now let's go again on turn 4. Like if they consistently are trying to stop your commander from hitting the table or like being potted away, you just keep going. The deck's very resilient, and there's probably a point in this, where turn 4 you just slam a Valley Flood Caller in on an end step, right? So you're able to, you have plenty of other 3-drops in the deck that you can take and pot away. You don't have to worry about always having your commander out. Now, obviously, you're never going to pot away something like a Cabbage Merchant, right? Like that's the definition of insanity. But there are cards that, like, Valley Flood Caller, like you're never winning at instant speed, right? Like this deck is not trying to win at instant speed.
Yeah, then that can only activate at sorcery speed thing people forget about a lot, but Birthing Pod does say that.
Yep, yeah, exactly. So it's only a sorcery speed combo, which is another reason why you can play Valley Flood Caller in the list and play Birthing Pod. You can have 6 mana on someone else's turn, play Birthing Pod, and then they go, oh, well, he's not going to win on his turn. Like it's like, guys, I'm not winning on your turn. I can't win. Like it's, you have to play the table to a very a point of, oh, okay, that's fine. I'll let you play it, and then just pot away your Valley Flood Caller on your turn and win, right? You gotta play people's feelings and the way they see the table, and just hope that they don't see what's coming next. But everyone knows. I feel like I've played, I don't know, I probably play 100 games a month minimum, like maybe 150 if I'm lucky, with how life is. But people always know what combo you're going for. If I say, hey, I'm playing Birthing Pod, I'm going to go activate it. They're like, oh, you're going to go get Felder Guardian? I'm like, yep, unless you want me to grab something different, And when you say you're going to grab something different, it's like the biggest, like they smile on their face. They get a little bit of a grin. They get like a little bit of a sigh of relief, a little sense of secure, safe security going in.
And
not knowing that you're
Arbiter.
not knowing that you're going to slam a Grand Arbiter or slam a Talion on the table, and then they're like, wait, what just happened? Like, why is this what's going on? So yeah, it's just a very fun commander. I've played it for 2 years now, almost. I don't think I'll stop playing it anytime soon. I'm kind of hoping that in the next, 5 or 6 sets that we get kind of some more cards that we can either pod into or pod away, or 3-drops that are powerful like Valley Flood Caller. A lot of the deck right now, can be taken apart. Like we can lose cards like the Metamorph. We don't really need the Metamorph. It's just a clone. Like I'm not looking to clone my opponent's boards. Nothing on their board is going to benefit me. So Phyrexian Metamorph would probably be a card that can be cut. Beseech the Mirror, like it's triple black, and like really, it's only there. The only reason I have Beseech in the list right now is I can go, bargain it away, go grab Calling Ritual, slam a bunch of mana on the table, right? This deck is screaming get to 6 to 9 mana as fast as humanly possible. And Calling Ritual allows you to do that because people will play 1 and 2 drops like crazy. So that's kind of it. So like Beseech could go. We've talked about Adnaz being a card that can go, but at the same time, like it doesn't need to go anywhere. We're fine. We're feeling safe. But yeah, it's a very tight list. I mean, we're on a very tight 100 cards. I don't really feel like you could cut much more than that. I mean, you could cut the Brian Fleshraker. So you maybe have 3 cards that fundamentally don't really function with the deck entirely, but at the same time, like without them, the deck's not really missing anything. They're just added bonuses or added support or added, ways to bring your deck up to the next level. So, yeah, that's the list in a nutshell.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's so to me, it seems like Metamorph is one of those things where, they de-swatted your Felidar Guardian, so now next turn you pod something into a Metamorph to make it a Felidar Guard. Or no, you can still just go right for Kiki Jiki or whatever at that point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
So there is no real, next turn it's still over for them. So, yeah, any closing thoughts? Anything you want to say before we finish up?
No, I mean, no real closing thoughts. I mean, the only other thing is we're on Grand Abolisher, Hexing Sculpture, and Voice of Victory, and Formidable
Lots of
Speaker.
protection.
So we're on lots of protection, a lot of jam, a lot of just go, go, go. Formidable Speaker, again, probably the most cracked card out of the Lorwyn set for cEDH. And what you're doing with it is you're pitching a card and you're grabbing Cabbage Merchant or Talion. Those are your only 2 cards you're looking for. Anything else is just dead weight.
Okay.
So
and then do you ever use the untap? Like, will you hover over it? Do you untap? Is it permanent?
Yeah. So you untap any permanent. Now,
so you could even untap pod if you can't get Felidar or something like that.
I will tell you a little game I played where someone had a dampening sphere, and I was trying to figure out how to win through a dampening sphere, and I had my mana vault tapped, into the side, right? Because it's been tapped since turn 1, and I had to find a way to untap it, and let's just say I untapped my mana vault. I paid 1, got 3 mana, and we got the win because we were able to untap. But is the untap effect something you're doing on a regular basis? No, it is not. We have thought about putting Gaia's Cradle in the list a couple times.
Maybe on a creature heavier version.
Yeah, it'd have to be a more creature-based list. Like, instead of being on 20 creatures, you're on something like 24 or 25 to be on Cradle. It's not. I don't think it's a bad thing, but yeah, it's super fun. It's super fun. But yeah, Formidable Speaker does amazing work. It's a card I will never say is bad. But yeah, those are all my closing thoughts.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Oh, of course, my friend. Of course, anytime.
So, all right. Well, you take care of yourself. I'll talk to you later.
Yes, sir.